So I'm going to tell you, for about 90% of this episode, I was not a fan. And I don't know if I was for the last 10%, but we're going to talk about it. All right, it's Gremlin Dominus. I am going to talk about the Punisher one-shot. I honestly didn't know that this was coming out today until I saw something somewhere about it, and it's something that I've been cautiously excited for. Punisher is a character that I have just always loved. He's just a very special character, near and dear to me. Frank Castle, I love him. And so I was very nervous about this show because Daredevil Born Again Season 1 I didn't like. I saw the very first episode of Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. I hated it so much, I never went back, and I just have zero interest. Even though I love Jessica Jones as well, I have zero interest. But I wanted to give this a chance because I love Frank Castle. So I don't have any notes for this either because I literally just finished it like 30 seconds ago and then grabbed the mic. And I'm just going to work out my thoughts on it with you guys. So I felt like this had a very kind of weird fan film vibe to it. I respected having all the characters that return, but I felt like they were kind of trying. I worried for a second they were going to try to have the Punisher retire or something, and I was like, are we really doing this? Are we going to say that he doesn't kill anymore? I was really not happy with that. And then the whole Manucci thing, obviously I know about Manucci, so I was aware of what they were doing with that. I don't know, something about that whole scene where she like tells her story, like the blood just kind of seemed CGI and poorly done. The acting to me didn't feel great, but maybe that's because I kind of knew what was going to go down with her when she was telling the story and who she was talking about. I'm like, has John Bernthal's Punisher always done that much like caveman guttural? Roar! I'm like, I know it's kind of a meme that he does that, but I was like, oh my gosh, she is doing that every 5 seconds in this episode, and I'm not a fan of that. I like the John Bernthal memes. I use the GIF all the time of the, no, 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 wait. I love that. And we kind of got a new one in this episode, which is kind of funny. I was not really a fan of this episode for the most part. I would say where it won me over, or I don't know, I don't want to say won me over, but it made me at least feel a bit more conflicted about my opinions on this episode, was everything after he walked away from Manucci and he entered that restaurant and he started just like butcher knife to the throat, stabbing with a pen, blood everywhere. I was thinking like, this is what the whole episode should have been from the start. And it's what I was waiting for. And it felt like it finally was giving into it. And then I was very satisfied with the ending where he takes the guy's hat, and then I'm like, please tell me he's going to kill people, because this is the Punisher. The Punisher should kill people. I don't care. I don't want to hear about the Punisher not killing people or killing people being wrong. He needs to kill people. He's the Punisher. It needs to be bloody. It needs to be like Tarantino craziness, but with control, because the Punisher is a trained killer. And I wasn't really seeing that trained killer for most of the action with Frank Castle. Once Manucci sicked all those people on him, he like let himself get lit on fire. He's like, I'm like, get off the toilet, Frank. But yeah, so for most of it, the action just wasn't working for me. But once he entered that like restaurant or whatever that was, that bodega, and he starts like just cutting people up, I was like, why does Frank Castle feel more like Frank Castle with a butcher knife than with a gun in this? It's weird, but he did. And so I was here for it. I was like, okay, it's a little disgusting, but that's like what it should be with Frank. All the emotional stuff to me, it's like, I like emotional evocation in proper characters, but Frank Castle isn't a character that I need to have this deep emotional story with. Also, I think John Bernthal having that full beard was throwing me off with him supposedly being Frank Castle, because it's like, Punisher doesn't have a beard. I mean, I'm sure he's had it before, but he just doesn't normally have a beard. And also, but obviously John Bernthal doesn't look like Frank Castle in the comics, but that doesn't really matter to me. I would be okay without that. But really, John Bernthal didn't feel like what I expect out of the Punisher until like the last like 10 minutes, maybe less of the episode. And that final scene where like the guy's like, he didn't just take my hat from me. And then Frank throws the knife at him, and then he like walks over slowly, and he's got like the gun, and then it like pans to from the gun's perspective, and he pulls the trigger. Internally, I was feeling like, yes, like that baby at the sports game, the gif of that where it's like, yes. I'm like, that's me. That's what I'm feeling. I'm like, we need the whole episode to be like this. Just him like, oh, you did something wrong to someone. Yeah, we're gonna kill you, and we're not gonna pretend that we feel bad about it. We're just gonna celebrate it, and the audience is gonna love it. That's all that the Punisher should really be. The Punisher is like a vengeance fantasy. I'm not talking about the real world ethics of what Punisher does. This is fiction. This is fantasy. Punisher is a like crime killing fantasy. And that's what he is, and that's what he should stay. I was a bit worried this episode with how the Daredevil's Born Again season 1 was. I thought it was going to be like the adaptation of the whole him lecturing the cops that they shouldn't wear his symbol, which I think he did in the Born Again episode. But I was really worried this was going to be some kind of like patronizing, like, Punisher regrets his actions, he's going to retire. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I want Punisher to butcher. The prison scene in Daredevil season 2 is peak Bernthal Punisher, if you ask me. That whole thing with like all those prisoners and he's like stabbing them with like the broken handle of the broomstick or whatever. I'm like, that is the most Punisher Bernthal's ever been. I love the Thomas Jane Punisher. That is like the one that's near and dear to my heart. I admittedly haven't seen the Warzone film since it first came out, and I was a bit younger and was like, this is so gory, it's disgusting. But I feel like if I saw it now, I would probably appreciate it a lot more. The Thomas Jane Punisher is just the one that like I grew up with and have an affinity for. But Frank Castle as a character, the most peak moment of Frank Castle for me, in my introduction, so my comic book introduction to comics in general, this is I guess a fun story to share here, was the graphic novel Amazing Spider-Man Civil War, which is why Civil War is my all-time favorite comic story, and ironically why I was disappointed by the film. It's grown on me over the years, but I was really upset by 2016's Captain America Civil War at the time, fun fact, just because I loved the comic so much. Controversial opinion there. I've grown to appreciate it more. But the scene where Punisher kills all the villains to save Spider-Man and then walks in carrying Spider-Man's bloody body, and then he's like, Captain America, you inspired me, and then Captain America like beats the crap out of him, and he's like, you're a disgusting monster, you don't represent me, you don't represent my values. All of that made me like love Punisher even more. I'm like, this is the Punisher. He's like he knows that everyone hates him. He just does it anyway. Like he just doesn't even care. But yeah, I love Frank Castle so much. So I feel like with everything taken into consideration, I got to be honest, this Punisher one shot was like a 6 to a 6.5, but the final like 8 minutes were like an 8 to 8.5, I would say. The more that we can get of just like clearly evil individuals getting like tortured and butchered to death, the better the Punisher adaptation will be in my eyes. And that sounds dark if you're not a Punisher fan, but I think if you're a Punisher fan, you get where I'm coming from and would agree with me. The Punisher, I believe it was Dirty Laundry one shot with Thomas Jane. That was amazing. For those that remember that, Adi Shankar did that short film. And that's what I wanted out of this. And I felt like I got it in those last 8 to 10 minutes, for the most part. But yeah, let me know what you think. Punisher fans, where are you at? What did you think of the Punisher one-shot? Did you like it? What do you think of John Bernthal's Punisher in general? I like it for the memes, but I like him in a certain way, but he doesn't feel like the true Punisher. I do love like the I am the Punisher. That court scene, that's great too. It's very much Bernthal Punisher versus like classic Punisher, I feel like. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Punisher is something that's, like I said, near and dear to my heart. So I just kind of wanted to not even script it, just jump on here and figure out my thoughts in the moment. Because I honestly wasn't sure what I thought, because I was really not happy with it until those last 10 minutes. But yeah, all right. Peace out. Punisher out. can't think of a. I wanted a clever Punisher. One batch, two batch, penny and a dime, bang.